Brad Myers. I'm the news director here at WECT WSFX in Wilmington, North Carolina. Brad Hyatt joins me, news director at WIS in Columbia, South Carolina. Here today to talk to you about knowing your value, not just talking about how much you're worth from a money perspective, although we will touch on that as well. As with all the sessions, feel free to ask questions in the chat or even put your hand up. If you guys could just make sure that I don't overlook any of those too, I would appreciate it. So, all right. So let's talk about landing your first job. Obviously, the first big hurdle in becoming a professional. The first thing you need to know is that our industry is changing faster than ever, especially when it comes to technology. We talked about this at the beginning of the day. So that's why it's important for you to identify what skills that you have right now. What's it mean for you? It means that you have new opportunities. That's why you need to identify those skills. Think beyond reporting and producing, though. Instead, think about life experience, stuff that other jobs or even hobbies that you have that you don't even know could actually correlate into some newsroom skills. Let's talk about the old way of thinking, and that's the big change right now in the industry, is that X years of experience is what we need in a new hire. The old way of thinking was experience, education, gender, company structure, but that's not necessarily the case anymore. Don't try to focus on matching up against some of the journalists with years and years of experience. You're not going to be able to come in fresh out of school and compete with these folks. But what you can do instead is focus on that life experience that you have and how that can also translate there. Identify those skills and how those skills could help with news gathering as well. All right, hit the ground running. Here's some examples. Look, I'm still clinging to the idea that I'm still a relatively young guy. Obviously, though, I don't have the internet skills that many of you guys are coming in right out of college with. You grew up with the internet. Most of you know it like the back of your hand. So use those digital skills to climb your way to the top of the newsroom's job candidate list. I've hired people in the digital content producer positions. That's some of the things like posting web stories and videos, sending out push alerts, and making social media posts, among many other things. But I've also hired DCPs simply because they know how to produce engaging social media posts and video editing, pictures or catchy wording. That's really important just because I have folks who are really good at putting together packages on the air, a minute 30 stories, and they are just terrible at making that pop on Facebook with some kind of a catchy post or something. Meanwhile, I have somebody who is fresh out of college, and they are one of the best at just posting maybe 2 or 3 words and getting an amazing amount of clicks on it because they know what it is that people on Twitter are looking for or what people on Facebook are looking for. So here's some more examples. Maybe you're really good at cutting those short made for social media videos. That's a skill. Maybe you're good at podcasting or long form storytelling. That's becoming a really popular thing and something that a lot of organizations are working to provide just because we have to reach people in different locations now. Not everyone likes to tune in at 6 o'clock and get their news. A lot of people want what we just heard today, some more of the backstory, and they want that long form storytelling. That's a skill. Maybe you're good at creating animations or building moving graphics to help with on-air storytelling. That's a skill, especially right now when we can't get to some of those locations. Being able to have some of those engaging videos can really make the difference in being able to tell a proper story. Here's another one.
Hey, Brad.
Yes.
Just to jump off what you're saying here because it's a theme. Somebody thanked for doing this. This is an honor for us to talk to you because all the things on this screen that Brad is talking about, you are better at them than we are. The experienced people who have been here doing this in a lot of ways. Now, there may be some things that you don't, but the reason is you grew up in this environment. It's natural for you to be able to tell stories in this way. Go after those, refine those skills, those type skills he's talking about here. And you're already ahead of the game because you have value that we don't have.
Great points. And that's, using that passion that you have may help you get on the air. One of the first ways that I was able to start doing some on-air reporting was through a tech segment that I did, because I absolutely loved gadgets and different things like that, and loved being able to boil it down to people who have troubles, using a cell phone. That was something I really loved to do, and it allowed me to take that passion and have my news director at the time give me a shot, and then I was able to turn that into reporting. As we talked about before, maybe you had an internship or a fascination with health, like Aaliyah did when she brought up earlier today. That could give you some focus that could help you become a health reporter or a producer. I actually had a reporter who was going through medical school. Definitely don't recommend doing both, and going through medical school and reporting. But he was one of the best health reporters we had, because he knew it and he cared about it. So find one of those passions. So what are the ways to realize your passion? Well, just like this reporter I was telling you about, because it was his passion, it allowed him to enjoy what he was doing every single day. So remember this: igniting your passion fuels your value. One thing that you need to find out, though, is that living your passion every day aligns you with your purpose, and that's going to drive your value even higher. The problem is we're often blind to a lot of our own skills because we just do them every day. So we don't think about, oh man, this is something that would actually help me with the job. So instead, ask others what they see your value in as a business context. Check with your mentors, peers, friends, and many others. Value your time above all else. Value doesn't always mean money, and the worst thing you can do is focus your value around money. You've heard it, and we'll touch upon it here in a little bit when Brad gets more into the money. That's why this needs to be a passion for you, because if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you're going to get burnt out very quickly in this industry. The other thing is, do your homework. You need to do whatever you can to stand out from the crowd. I get dozens. I have an open MMJ position right now, and dozens of resumes and applications. And after you start going through there, a lot of people are basically the same skill set. So you need to do whatever you can to stand out from the crowd. Most important thing here is do some research about the organization, the newsroom, the employees there, the news director. Learn what they like. That way you can figure out how your skills and how your passions kind of align with that. Probably the easiest way to do this is to watch their streaming newscasts. Then kind of figure out how your skills fit in with that station. There is no reason that you should ever interview for a job without having seen that station's product first. All of us have streams now on our website or app. Just take the time. Doing that, I promise you, will help give you a leg up. I often ask the question, what do you know about Wilmington? What do you know about WECT? And the worst thing I can hear is, I've never actually heard about the station. I just saw it's at the beach and I wanted to be there. So think about that. Bottom line, again, do your research. It's so simple to do. I'm going to throw things over to Brad now, who we're going to talk a little more about the salaries.
All right. Thanks, Brad. We're the world famous news Brads, if you did not know that. But that's another story. Knowing your value is a complicated question, right? We've been talking a lot about this in different ways this morning. There's the values that you have that you bring to the table as a news, as a journalist. There's the value you get out of being a journalist. Your whys, your passion. Then there's this number, your value, salary type thing. Yes, starting out, you're not going to get rich as a journalist, most likely, unless you are just a star, and maybe you are. And if so, come talk to me when this is over. But you do bring value to the table. You've got to know what that is, though. A little clip from Mika Brzezinski, who does a lot on your value. Actually, I wrote a book about it. It focused mainly on from a woman's perspective, because there's no doubt that over the years, women have lagged behind men on salary. It's fact. The data shows it, right? What are the reasons for that? Why are women not, reaching their potential when it comes to a salary, compensation, getting what they deserve, just the fair shake, right? But a lot of what she also talks about in her book applies to everyone. So this is just a little clip to kind of get us in the right frame of mind.
Concept of your personal brand a little bit in detail?
Well, I think it depends on where you are and what stage of your career. But you've got to be able, I would definitely, before tomorrow is over, be able to say what your value is and what you bring to the table in 20 seconds or less. Have that elevator pitch, have that passionate moment for yourself and know it, and say it to yourself every day. Get used to being comfortable with the words slipping off your tongue, just like when I told you my value. And it doesn't have to be like I host a talk show. It can be, you know what, I'm 22. I'm extremely focused. I have a great attention to detail, and I want to be a marketing manager someday. I'm open to learn. That's my value right now. It can be something as simple as that, but you have to know what it is you bring to the table, what you're excited about, what you're passionate about, and practice putting it into work.
Concept of your
All right. So look, none of you in here are hosting a talk show yet that's on air, but you're doing other things and you bring value to the table. So you do need to craft that your message that will make you stand out from the other, how many ever people you may be competing against. And knowing how many people you may be competing against is also a good thing to know. Maybe we'll mention a little bit about that too, because it depends on the job. All right, so here's 2 resumes I made up. All right. Don't see any pictures with these folks. We don't know them from anybody. We haven't spoken to them. Just looking at them on a piece of paper. Who gets the job? Any thoughts? Number 1. I mean, I'm going to tell you, it's a BS question up front, but your answer still matters. The answer is, it depends on the job. Always. You might look at this and say 3.9 is going to be better than 3.0. Well, I have no idea. What are their skill sets? What is their passion? What can they already do? What do they still need to learn? How much can you learn? I mean, really, when it comes to value that I'm looking, a lot of what we do in news is teaching. And so the ability to learn new skills is probably the number 1 skill. But then it's what you bring to the table, and the more of those skills that you start out with, writing, editing, shooting, podcast, on air, delivery skill, passion, intelligence, all these are skills. Intelligence is a skill. The ability to present what you want to say in 20 seconds. 20 seconds is pretty quick. A minute is a skill, and you can get better at it. I was awful at it. Kim can tell you. I used to work with Kim Saxon right there for a long time. I was terrified to go in there and talk to my boss and ask him about a raise. So much so that I probably didn't do it for years when I should have. Don't do that necessarily. But you also don't want to rush in there asking for a raise when you haven't proven that that's where you are. So have a good idea of your value. Know what the jobs are in news, because there are a lot of different jobs in news. And a lot of the candidates we see in school are going after the exact same job. I just did this in literally 20 seconds, the jobs I could think of. I'm sure I left a lot of things off here. What jobs are you qualified for? What jobs do you plan to move into? So I'm assuming there's some folks here who want to be reporters on air, MMJs. That is absolutely one of the jobs here on the list. It's a great job. We need talented MMJs, but it's not all about just being on TV either. So, what does an assignment desk editor do? What are the skill sets you need for that? Director, reporter MMJ, graphic artist, TMP, that's a technical media producer, what we call them, and Bray for someone who directs the show but also does master control. Do you know what that job is? Familiarize yourself with the different positions in a newsroom. And so, hey, I want to be this or this or this, but there are all kinds of hybrid roles now, is the point we're showing you, that matter. And you can make a difference in a newsroom and in some ways plot your own course if you have the different skill sets to combine these jobs. I think in looking at the research for this, something like 60% of new jobs in TV news were producers or reporters. So I can tell you right now that there's a huge need for producers, reporters, but also a lot of these other jobs as well.
Brad,
all right, we can go to the next slide.
Brad, to your point with producers, I guarantee you every news director in here right now will tell you that's one of the most important things that we all are constantly trying to recruit, because that is basically the start, the foundation of this show, because they do so much. It's also a great way to quickly work your way up. You're going to work your way up way faster as a producer than you likely will as a reporter. So keep that in mind too. Sometimes if you sacrifice that, you can kind of move up a little faster, especially in market size and pay as well.
Well, and Brad, to point out there is important to know, if you're applying for a reporter or MJ job, you're going up against probably a lot of other qualified candidates for that position. Probably some that have more experience than you. As a producer, it's not going to be the case so much. The path is quicker there. Look, if you want to be on air and that is your goal and that's what you want to do, go for it. We're not telling you this information to dissuade you from going after your passion, but know that is a tougher road. Producers, if you can produce a good show, you can get a job like that. And if you can learn a producer's job, same thing. So it's great knowledge to have. Any questions about that before we move on here to talk specific kind of money, right? Actual how much you get paid. All right, no questions specifically. How much, guess here, what's the average starting salary in television news? Now, I know we can have some guesses for this one. It's the big question. The Jeopardy music.
Right.
Okay, 25, 23. Just average. We're saying average starting salary. 20, 25. All right. So on 15. Okay. Well, I got some good news for you. The answer is higher than any of those guesses. 27 is closer. It's about $30,000.
I feel like the music was wrong since all the guesses were so low. We should have been like a nice.
I know. I thought
so. It was not.
So they had, so y'all know. No, and it's in the drum roll. That the womp 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 was a little bit of because $30,000 a year is not. Look, it's not the most horrible thing in the world, but you're not rich starting there. And depending on what market you go to, $30,000 may not be what you get either. because this business market size really doesn't matter. And we'll get more into that a little bit here. But let's just look a little bit more in depth specifically at some of the jobs that we talked about. MMJ reporter, average starting salary, $29,000. And you can get into all kinds of numbers here. If you see the minimum, there's 21. This information is coming from RTDNA salary survey that's done yearly. It's a great asset. And I think that I'm not sure if I'm supposed to even share it, but I am anyway. So this is good info for you to have because you want to be in the same ballpark. You don't want to be way out in left field with how much you're asking for on the low or the high end. You don't want to shortchange yourself by asking for not enough, but you also want to make sure you're not asking for $5,000, $10,000 more than you have any opportunity to get, because you won't get it. And that news director, now I personally wouldn't think this, but that news director would say they didn't do their homework on that. But I will tell you that most applicants, or a lot of applicants, don't know, what even the ballpark is. News producer is a little higher actually than reporter, which is interesting if you go back to see which one it's probably more competitive in the reporter side. But you're around the same thing, minimum of 20 in some smaller markets there, depending on where you are, different types of jobs, and average of starting salary of 31. Now, if you go up a little higher, that's the starting salary. So that's where you are looking at possibly going, but average is higher than that for both, approaching 40. So that's not that bad. I mean, keep it in perspective, but know these numbers. And if y'all would like, a little bit annotated version of this with some specifics on it, we can obviously do it for you.
Hey, Brad, I just shared that survey in the chat, so you can grab the link and save it and look through it later if you want to get details.
It's good, fun week reading for everybody once this is over. Here's some more jobs on here, and this puts it down for starting salaries, which is, look, that's what you want to kind of look at an idea here. You don't have 5 years experience, so it is a little different. But MMJ 28, producer 31, reporter 29, photographer 30, assignment editor 40. That one kind of jumped out to, but look, it is very hard to find an assignment editor. An assignment editor is the person in the newsroom who is basically kind of the brains of the operation, planning, making sure that your day-to-day is going the way it is, looking ahead, assigning. It's a very tough job. So there's a few. There's a starting. As you can see, those max and miss are, vary. Actually, something I didn't point out, but if you could go back, Brad, real quick to the previous slide. And I should point this out because this is important to what we're talking about. Yes, you start out low. It is the opportunity for you to grow. I mean, the maximum down there for those jobs is pretty good. I mean, I think we'd all be okay with some of that, but keep in mind that maximum, there are very few jobs that pay that if you're a reporter or a producer. That is literally the highest they have. So probably New York, who knows? But when you're looking at that maximum, yes, but the number of jobs that represents very few. Okay, we can go to the next. Go to the next one, please. All right, here's the big thing. Market size matters. Yes, it does. A lot. And that really depends on how many people are watching those news, or what's the part of the population that you have in that DMA that the station is in. So this breaks it down depending on DMA, what salaries can range. And jump in here and goes, oh, well, this person makes this, because you can't tell that. These are averages. But it depends on the market size. So if we go down to MMJ, in markets 51 to 100. So my market, Columbia, South Carolina, is actually right in the middle of that, 75. You can see that it's around 38. If you go to market 100 plus, and I think Brad, Winton's 126, correct?
Yep. But one thing that you need to
That's substantially different.
is that if, you know, while you may not be able to make as much, obviously, at the smaller market, you're likely going to get more opportunity. You're going to probably be kind of thrown into reporting a lot sooner than you would in a bigger market. You know, a top 50 market may not even let you voice a package, let alone go on the air. Whereas I can be a little more lenient, and because I'm giving you a chance, and we're trying to be more of a teaching shop. You might be able to get a little bit of anchoring opportunities at a smaller market, whereas a bigger market won't even, you know, let you look at the desk. It's just one of those things of what are you willing to trade in terms of pay for experience? Because a lot of times that experience can help you move up a lot faster. So there's a lot of give and take in this.
And that's a very good point, Brad, because we don't want you to look at this as, oh, bigger's better and forget all else. We just want you to have an idea of what the difference is and when you go into this, so you know your value or what your potential value could be. But absolutely, the beauty of you know, not a top 20 market is you get to do more. You have more opportunities there to spread your wings and do different things. Yeah, you're not going to get to anchor in Raleigh or Charlotte, you know, after you've been for a little bit, just a little bit of time. It's not going to happen, most likely. That is a different story in Wilmington and in Columbia, depending on the station and the skill set of the person involved. So know these numbers, know that market size does matter, but more important than market size is the station. And that is something everybody should understand. It takes people a long time in their careers to understand. So we're going to give you a head start. The station and the quality of the station and the quality of the station, and that it's the right fit for you is more important than market size.
It's that first job, just making sure that you get started on the right foot. It can also help, you know, what we talked about, fuel your passion as well. One final thing I want you to think about as well is in this changing industry, a lot of bigger companies are now gobbling up all of these stations. And so the thing you need to think is how all of these companies interconnect. Kim, myself, and Brad work for Gray, and you know, we're constantly sharing video and sharing stories, different things like that. But I am a smaller station at 126, and a lot of times, you know, whenever I have somebody who's really good, I'll alert Kim and tell Kim, hey, listen, I have a really good reporter, anchor. He's ready for that next step, and we can have a direct pipeline from Wilmington to a Charlotte. I have a lot of folks who have gone to Raleigh from our station to WRAL. That's a huge jump, guys, into some of the biggest stations in the country. So keep that in mind as well, because sometimes that can also help you make some jumps that you may not be able to do otherwise.
Raj, can I just pop in here for a second, just add one other thing to this equation, and that is, forget about market size, forget about money, pick your boss. If you pick a good boss, your career will take off. And especially in your first job, you want to pick somebody who is a teacher as much as anything else. And I would suggest to all the students on this call that the news directors who teach and can take you to the next level are all on this Zoom and are all part of RTDNAC. So you want to look carefully at who you will be working for.
Great point.
Yeah, I think that, Rich, I think that that's just a great, and I'll be honest with you, I used to work in a bigger market, and now I'm in Columbia, and I was not as good of a teacher as I needed to be. And I've really started to focus more on that side of it, and it's been fulfilling for me, which is great. But yes, you want to learn as much as you can, especially in that first job, because it can set the tone for where you go next, and those people that you get to know there, and the skills that you from them can really help you. And you want somebody that, when you get right down to it, you want who wants you to succeed. That is the most important thing in any boss that you'll ever have. So that was kind of a lot, and I went through it quickly. I know you get to see all those numbers and everything there in depth. I mean, we really want to open it up and answer your questions now, because getting your first job can be a time. You don't know what to ask, you don't know what to say. Should I ask about the salary? I mean, I get people, I'll go through the entire interview process with them and then basically tell them I have a job and they haven't asked me what the money's going to be. Don't do that. Okay. But you also want to approach it the right way. And so, you know, these are the folks that be doing the hiring. So ask them the questions.
Angel, I think you had your hand up first. I'm not sure who.
Okay, I have a question. I actually have two questions. So what advice would you give to someone who has an internship coming up and who's going to be working with people that's much more experienced than them and older than them? And then once they get through that internship, I should just say me because I'm talking about me. Once I get through that internship, how can I stay connected to them to hopefully continue with them in the future?
Can I tell you a little story, Angel? Just quickly, that illustrates what you're asking. Internship, the worst part about the pandemic, one of the worst parts for us is that I've been able to have internships, but I got an internship when I got my first job with someone much older than me. I learned everything I could from him. Reporter, that person went to my wedding, and I just talked to him on Facebook last night, and this was 20 years ago. So go for that and learn as much as you can from those people, because they can be long friends and mentors to you.
Ask plenty of questions. You cannot ask enough questions. And as far as staying in touch with them, I think the same thing. I think it was maybe Victoria or Kathy who was talking about establishing good contacts. It's the same thing with those mentors. Don't just reach out to them when you're in trouble. Reach out to them when you have wins. Reach out to them when they have good stories, because that constant connection is going to keep you tighter to that person, and they're going to be more likely to respond. All the board members will tell you, in news, you get crazy busy, and you also get a lot of emails and contacts and things like that. And so when I hear from somebody who has been in touch with me a lot more, good or bad, I'm a lot faster at responding to that person and trying to get that feedback to them. Jandea?
So my question was basically with that, what do you guys look for like in reels? Because I know creative stand-ups now are really cool and like really important. So I was just wondering, like, what are you guys looking for in reels?
For me personally, and I think it depends on market size as well, what I'm looking for in a reporter reel probably isn't what Kim or Rick are looking for in terms of a reporter, because they may have a photog that can go with that reporter. I'm an MMJ shop. Like, I expect you to be able to do everything. So I want to see that you are doing it. I think a lot of times younger reporters will put a lot of their stuff where it's clear they have a photog with them and they're going around and everything. That tells me that I then question, would they be able to shoot on their own? I also want to see, your writing come through. I see way too many stand-ups and intros and things like that. I want to see more of your package writing and more of your storytelling. So make sure there's a good balance of those. But I would love to hear from some of the other news directors on that.
I want to second that a bit about the writing. That's what's big for me, is knowing how someone can write a story. You can have like 15 stand-ups off the top, but I want to see your package. I want to see how they're designed. But also I just want to see your potential. You know, because you're not going to be the finished product coming out of school. But I just want to see the potential that you have. So I'm kind of projecting where you can be, you know, coming into your first newsroom. So, but to me, it all starts about the writing. You know, I mean, we can work on some other things. We can work on presence. We can work on voice. But no, but how well you write it is what I kind of look for.
Can I jump in and just say, beyond the resume tape, once you get that opportunity and you get the interview, that's not to me where it ends, because we talked about story ideas and story pitches. I want Jendaya to come into my newsroom and tell me what kind of story she's going to pitch. What is she going to be able to turn? And have you been able to pay attention to what's happening in our community so that you can push forward some relevant ideas that I may say, that she's got something going on there? Because to Bernie's point, we're going to help develop you. But I just need there to be enough meat there to start with that you understand what a good story is. And then we can help you push it forward. And that's also about keeping in touch. I mean, I didn't necessarily get my job each time I applied. I was often the second time a job opened was when I got the opportunity. So the first interview was my foot in the door. They obviously liked me enough, and I chose to keep in touch with them and have a positive relationship and not be frustrated. I didn't get it. I would just say, well, thank you for considering me. I'd love to keep in touch. And I would send those emails that say, hey, saw the story idea. I just wanted to pass it along. Might have been 6 months later, but that next opportunity was often mine. You just want to be a little better than average, right? Most people are average, and none of you are, because you're on this call this Saturday morning, right? So you're already showing us that you're a little bit better than average. Just be a little better. Write the thank you note. Take the time. You know, just push it one step forward.
I also love Kathy's answer in the chat, just of things not to do. I do see way too many people like eating in there, and it's not just the eating part of it. To me, it is the fact that your reel seems more about you than it really does like this, your storytelling. And while your reel should be about you, it makes it seem like you focus your stories on you instead of focusing the story on the people that you're telling the story about. That's just one of my pet peeves too.
Yeah, I mean, I can stand in front of a camera and tell you how great the food at the fair is, right? I mean, I need to see your talent. What's your talent in storytelling? So give me 3 of your best stand-ups, because I really don't need anything more than that. I want to know that you can show me something, that you can bring me to that scene, not just, you know, I'm standing here with a microphone in front of a building. Use whatever that building is to help tell your story. And then I always look for a crime story, because I need to know that you're not going to get me sued. That's so important to me. I need to know that you know how to attribute facts. And I can tell you, I have had a lot of reels that I've gotten that have a crime story on it where they said that somebody did something and they are automatically thrown out. Because if you can't attribute the facts, you're not going to survive in my newsroom. So I'm really picky about reels, really picky, but I'm also really picky about the people in my newsroom. And that kind of goes to another thing. You know, you're talking about mentors and internships and things. You know, I have an anchor. He will give you the proverbial shirt off his back. He'll help you. He'll take you to lunch. He will do whatever you need from him. But the moment you tell him you don't have time, or it's not important to you, or, you know, you're looking at your phone instead of listening, he will cut you off, because our time is really valuable. So you need to use it wisely and be smart about it. And if you know, I already know that. I was in school, I took this class. Well, school is very, very different than being in the business and doing it every day. Very different. The lines are different, the stories are different, who you have to work with is different, and you're getting a paycheck. Remember, we're paying you to do this job. So if I'm paying you to do this job, you really should listen to the feedback that I have to give you, or that the anchor has to give you, because it is valuable. You know, we've done this for how many years and we're still in it. We know what works. If you've only been in school, you don't know what works, because you haven't been on air, because you haven't been in the newsroom. So there are a lot of people who think that they know what they should be doing, and you don't. Just be humble and be thankful that somebody is giving their time when they could be tracking down a story or making a phone call, that they are giving you valuable time and valuable feedback. Not everybody will do that. There will be people in the newsroom who are going to ignore you. So if you have that person who wants to invest in you, use that time and energy wisely.
No, we have a couple more
Yeah.
questions. Bob, did you have something?
Kathy, what you say is, sorry, Brad. We got Brad's just talking all over each other. It's important that you pay attention to the details in your reel and your resume very closely. Do not have a mistake in there, because I will throw it away and I'll probably burn it. I had the perfect candidate for a job, experience, everything. Something was misspelled in the resume. Well, like we just said, that's going to get us sued. Unacceptable. Like, so take care for those little things. That makes a difference too. And you can lose a job over something like that. And this person did over people who don't have as much experience because of that. So little things matter. And just to go back to a little bit what else you were saying, Kathy, what you can learn in a newsroom that you have not had a chance to yet, that you can't learn in 4 years of school, is the perspectives of the other people there that have been doing it, that have heard those stories, that do know things and have experienced things that you haven't yet. And I can too. And that's why it's still fun to go in every single day. There's a lot that you can take away from everybody that I don't know where I heard this, and I'm not a huge, I don't usually say things like this, but let it like everybody else is a teacher and you're the student with everything, but especially into something new like this, learn as much as you can from everybody. The more open you are, the more they're going to be. The more focused you are and what they're saying is important, or they're going to give you.
Elliot?
Hi. So I'm interested, after I graduate in May, I'm interested in become like a freelance writer for a newspaper. And I wanted to like inquire about like submitting like stories to like a newspaper. I've written like several stories like in my future writing class that I think I wouldn't mind like submitting. So I just wanted to like understand how do you like submit like a story to like an editor? And then what does like an editor like look for in terms of a good story pitch?
I'll try to let a news director maybe who has a little more print background. Anybody?
Yeah, do we have any newspaper folks on here? You might throw the word digital in there and that might change the whole question.
I wonder, let's just take your question in a slightly different way. For the news directors here in television, you all have robust websites. Are you looking for people with that kind of a print background to bolster your websites?
I will say
Print background is a huge plus for digital producers.
It's sad that I have to ask
Digital
people,
producer.
AP style while writing, those, and a lot of people don't, coming out of even journalism school. And so if that's one less thing I have to teach, yeah, definitely. And typically I want those stories to be more robust and more, much more thorough, obviously, than what we're able to do on broadcast. So. Anybody else?
I guess what I was going to say about the reel is, we were an MMJ operation, and it always surprised me when people sent us reels or sent us links to reels that were obviously not shot by them, not edited by them. So I guess the thing I would caution students who are looking for their first job is do a little research on the station, see what their on-air style is, find out what they're looking for. When I look at a reel, I want to see I mean, yeah, I want to see what you look like on camera, but I think Kathy said 3 stand-ups. That's great, and that is great. But I want to see some stories that you've shot, edited, and written, so I can see what kind of work you do. And typically, I ask for scripts for those stories because I really want to see your writing too, because I'm going to have to be looking at your scripts and copy editing them. I want to see whether you know how to write, how you know how to write, whether somebody's gone over it with you, and then also see what you can see, what your shooting's like, what your editing's like, all those sorts of things. I'd look for hard news stories. I'd look for a character story, so we know that you could do something on small town North Carolina, go to the barbershop, find somebody to talk to or something like that. Just a wide variety. And several people made points about crime stories. Yes, you've got to go to a situation, especially in breaking news, where you're going to have to get a lot of information that may be developing. You've got to be able to attribute that, pull all that together from a lot of sources. We've had reporters go out on a story like that, and they'll be like, I don't know what to do. Gather the information. Who do I talk to? Okay, you should have been thinking about this on your way over there. So, just know that the skill set's got to be in place, and sometimes you're going to get thrown into something at the drop of a hat. And those are also opportunities in smaller stations, as the Brads mentioned earlier, because you're getting a lot of opportunity that your skills may not be up to, just because, hey, who's in the newsroom? It's you. Head out the door. So
I would throw out on the real front, we don't generally hire right out of school. So your reel needs to reflect your actual work. If you send me something, you spent 6 months re-editing the same package to get it perfect, I can go on the internet and watch what you did live yesterday. So if you are a mess 5 days a week, but last Tuesday you had one good package, I can find that out pretty easily. So to be honest with yourself about what your best work is, what's representative of your typical work. And Jack, you've had your hand up for a while, so I want to get to you.
I appreciate all everything we've been talking about. I was just interested in given that we are in the pandemic, for us graduating in May and talking about newsroom cultures. There's a lot fewer shadowing opportunities, right? In-person internship opportunities. I was curious to know what you all recommend and what you all are maybe doing for potential new hires in terms of making sure they feel comfortable and making sure they kind of truly understand the newsroom outside of maybe just talking to people that you'd be working with.
I can take that, at least part of the answer. One of the things that I can say is this has been a problem for us as far as having interns. It has made our recruiting process in some ways easier, because I can add you into our morning editorial meeting and you don't have to drive across the state and stay in a hotel and get up at 6 a.m. and you can just join us for different things. We have a pretty robust interview process where, if you were interviewing for a job with us, you'd sit on at least one editorial meeting. You'd be in a small group meeting with representatives of groups you would work with. So, if you're trying to get a producer job, there'd be a couple of producers in there, probably an EP, probably a reporter, maybe an assignment editor. And I always encourage, it's not handpicked for us. I just try to get people who are working that day. And I always encourage people to speak openly, because I want you to know what you're getting into. So I think in about a year, it's going to be rough for the Brads, because, losing your junior year in a job like this is hard. So last thing before I remute myself is, even if you don't have that internship, even if you don't get that chance to be in a newsroom, keep working on stories. Find somebody who graduated a year before you who got a job. Talk to your instructors and see if they know anybody who's been doing this for a year or two who can remember the transition, not like we're talking about back in my day, but when your day was last year, that's a different kind of advice.
kind of jump back to Bob's point too, just about your reel. Something that I see a lot is folks who maybe had an internship with a station, and they will put their stand up and the package on there, and I'm like blown away. Like it's the first thing they put on there. I'm like, goodness gracious, this is really good. It's great writing. It's amazing. And then it becomes clear midway through that they were actually just out with the reporter, and then they put themselves in there and just reread what the reporter said and revoiced the package again. You know, back to what, you know, I think Kathy or somebody else was putting in there. That's a 2-second Google for me that I put in that story. And guess what? I watched the actual reporter story, and then I see that you had nothing to do with that other than revoicing it. Again, we want to see what you do. I don't need to see what the actual reporter is doing, who's had 10 years of experience. Also, just I look for somebody, and I'm sure all the other news directors do too, who just know how things work. Too many people come into my newsroom and don't understand how local government works. They don't understand what city council does. They don't understand what county commission does. They don't understand the legal process. They have no clue what an arraignment is. They have no clue, you know, what happens next in this process. You have to come in with that, because we don't have time to teach you that. That is something that I would hope that you would have already learned. Because if not, I'm going to question how, you know, your ability to dig.
And on that note, more news you can watch, consume, get into your seeing it, hearing it. This is how it works. This is different things you can do. I mean, not keeping up with the news, that you have to do to be a journalist. I mean, this morning, I mean, all the people on this call, we have to also know, to also know what's going on right now. So that is but you got to watch news, consume news. If you just use the phone to get your news, that's great, but also watch some on air. You need to do that. How does it look? How does it feel? The words they're using, and and what worked and what didn't work. The way you get that feel, a better feel for it, is by watching, by knowing.
And back to Brett and Dedrick's presentation, don't just get your news from certain sources. Do the round robin, catch information from different areas and get different perspectives. Even if you don't think they're right, it matters. You need to know that things are coming from all kinds of angles. There's never two sides to a story. There's always more. So just be mindful where you're getting your information from.
We have a question. Felipe says, what are Reels packages? News directors, we get carried away with our jargon. Reels are simply your resume, your video resume, basically, of the stories that you've told. Packages are just stories. It is a voice track and what we call SOTs, sound on tape. And so it's a mix of it, and it's a way that we tell our stories. Basically, if you've ever watched any form of news, whether it's, you know, nightly news or even local news, that's those longer form, that's a package. And I hope I did a good job explaining that, because it's been a while. Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to say before we do that, it's been a pleasure talking with y'all. You're the future of what we do. It's very important to us that you succeed and that you do this. You maintain that passion, because we are all doing it because it matters to us, and we think it matters to our country and our world. So the more you learn, the more you're heading into it, the better, because there will be good days and bad days.